Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to talk about Cardano and its native token ADA. So if you guys like the content, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. So as we've been following Cardano for a long time now. Congratulations to everyone who's buying in this region down here. If you were, let me know in the comment section below. But what you can see is this is a risk metric for ADA. It goes from 0 to 1, 0 being the dark blue region where it's a historically low risk level, and dark red meaning historically high. So we have this for other coins like Bitcoin and Ethereum. Obviously, the one for ADA isn't as mature of an indicator just because it hasn't really been around that long. But remember, the risk levels are dynamic. You can even see that the risk level here was lower than it was over here. So one of the things you can note is that we really have been moving up this, the price ladder and subsequent risk ladder, and we've recently crossed into, that new risk regime of 0.4. And while it's fairly commonly known that for Bitcoin, I don't actually consider personally, this is not financial advice, but personally, I don't actually start selling Bitcoin until a risk level of 0.5. But you have to be careful with altcoins, just because of how finicky they are and how easily they can move up and down in the short term, especially with respect to Bitcoin. And you also have to remember, too, that the risk metric for Bitcoin is optimized for lengthening cycles and diminishing returns, whereas the ones for the altcoins are not optimized for that yet, just because we don't really have enough data. I don't have enough data to project, in any confident fashion what I think it would look like. So with that said, ADA is now at around 10 cents, so we did make it, but the risk level is now around 0.4. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. I want to go through some of the other graphs. This is the regression chart I've shown for ADA a few different times. This was what it was the last time I showed it, and I said as long as Bitcoin continues to stay above the 20-week moving average, then I think the price is going to continue going up in the near term, primarily on anticipation of the rollout of the mainnet Shelley, and especially since the incentivized testnet was going so well. It seems likely that the price would continue to increase, and it has. And you have to remember, though, we like to stay level-headed on this channel. We're not like I'm not just going to tell you that ADA is just going to go increase monotonically, to $1, because it's not. There's going to be several corrections along the way, and 10 cents could be an area where we pull back some. We don't really know at this point. But this is where we currently are on the regression chart. You can see we are kind of climbing that ladder, from the orange band to the yellow, and then to the yellow to the purple. The next one would be green at, we're really not that far away from it, just a little bit more, because, up here, the blue line would be at around 20 cents. So getting to the green line is only a few more percentage points to go, and we'll be there. So this regression line again isn't as useful as the one for Bitcoin, but I do show it because I think a lot of people that follow the channel just like to kind of see where we are, even if it isn't as predictive or as useful as the one for Bitcoin. So this was a chart I showed for ADA. What if ADA had the market cap of EOS, Litecoin, XRP, Ethereum, and Bitcoin? We did this one about a month ago or so, and you can see that at the time the price of ADA was around 8 cents. And if it had the market cap of EOS, then if it had the market cap of all these different coins, you can see that the price would have continued to increase. But now ADA has taken over some coins, and one of the ones here, obviously, you can see that the red dots are what it was last time, and then the blue dot is what it was. This is what it is now. So the price has moved up from 8 cents to 10 cents, okay? And if ADA had the market cap of EOS, then in fact the price would be lower. Last time the price would have been higher because it was higher up on the market cap ratings. But what's interesting is you can see that with respect to every coin up here, ADA has gained value since that video against each of these coins. And the way you note that is because in the last video, we know that if ADA had the market cap of these other coins, it's the red dot. Now it's the blue dot, which means the valuation of those other cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum. We know that the market caps of those coins have decreased. Okay, but at the same time, while they have decreased, ADA has gone up. We know that Bitcoin has been fluctuating between 8,600 to 10,000 for quite a while now, for a couple months. And despite the fact that it's kind of at the lower range right now, ADA has continued to move up, and this is one of the reasons why I really like covering this coin. It's not because the price is going up. We covered it even when it was 2 cents. It was just because I think it is a promising project to have on this market cycle. I've said many times that it is my primary hedge against Ethereum, because they really are rolling out the mainnet very soon, and I do think that proof of stake and also decentralized finance, these kinds of things will likely help catalyze the bull market. But note that if you go up the rankings here, if ADA had the market cap of something like Ethereum, then the price per ADA would be 10 to the 0, which is $1. And of course, some of you may think, why would I even show Bitcoin on here? Because if ADA had the market cap of Bitcoin, the current price of ADA would be around $5 or $6. You might think, oh, well, that's ridiculous. ADA would never get to the market cap of Bitcoin. You have to remember, like I said in the last video, this would be the market cap of Bitcoin today. If ADA were to ever get to this point, which obviously is a big if, it automatically assumes that Bitcoin would likely be over 6 figures. ADA, I don't see going to $5 or $6 if Bitcoin is still around 10,000. It's not going to happen, most likely. And for those who still think that it's completely ridiculous, I also will remind you that in the last market cycle, if you go back and look at the market caps of Ethereum and Bitcoin in 2015, and then the market cap of Ethereum was absolutely tiny, and it overtook easily what Bitcoin was back then. So you have to remember that when we project out these prices, we're talking about, okay, well, this is encapsulated in the fact that Bitcoin would likely need to go to 100K or a little bit higher to realize these types of moves. This shows the return on investment of ADA and Bitcoin since inception. So they're normalized to show kind of where each project is at. Now, one of the things with ADA that it's kind of, to be completely honest, with regards to ADA, I don't actually think it had any business, really being part of that last tail end of the market cycle. It would almost be better just to kind of forget about this, because, really, back over here, we were still 2 years away from the testnet, because we're talking about, December of 2017. And then the testnet was finally launched in December of, the incentivized testnet, I should say, was launched in December of 2019. So we were literally 2 years away. So to some degree, ADA had no business being part of this in the first place. Now it does have all the business in the world of being part of this market cycle. As far as I'm concerned, I do think it's certainly one of the more promising projects out there. And you can see that, since we did return to a return on investment since inception, we returned down to 1, meaning your value is the valuation of what you're holding is worth the same as when you would have invested had you bought at the early prices, and you can see we returned to that level over here, and we returned to it once more, and now we're hopefully starting to continue to make our way up. But we know that things do not monotonically increase in this space. If we're lucky, this would be sort of, maybe the most bullish case I could see for ADA, in terms of in the confines of thinking that Bitcoin will go to 100K over, say, the next 3 years. Then this would theoretically project ADA to also do well if it's part of that bull run, and I think it will be. So this would be more my most bullish scenario, basically seeing the ROI from inception go up to somewhere between 100x to 1000x. So to give you an idea, 100x from the bottom over here, because the bottom is around 2 cents, is where I have as the reference point. So 10x would just be 20 cents, and 100x would be $2. So 100x would be $2. So I could see it getting somewhere between, say, like 100x and maybe like 500x from the bottom, which means, you're looking at somewhere between, $2 to $10. And I know that sounds crazy, and a lot of you would be entirely skeptical, especially if you watch the channel and you're not invested in ADA and you think it's not worth investing in. But you also have to remember that these moves that occur, a lot of them occur in like a week or two, and it's but a fleeting moment in time. So if you're thinking of, the next paradigm shift will be a $10 ADA or a $5 ADA, it's most likely not true. I mean, if it were to make it to that point, which is a huge if, it would only likely be there for a very short period of time, and then it would come back down. Not all the way to 2 cents probably, but I mean, it could certainly come back down to $1 or $2. So you have to consider that any type of move like this would, if it's up here in this region, then it'd be but a fleeting moment in time, and it would not be sustainable in the short term. It doesn't mean that you couldn't build back up to it. I mean, you can see that Bitcoin has gone up and crashed several times. But the thing is that I think each coin, you can't. The market's becoming more efficient. We know the market's becoming more efficient. You can't just the days of I shouldn't say completely the days of printing ERC20s and just and watching them skyrocket are over, because it is actually still occurring even today. But as we go forward in time, it's going to occur, less and less frequently as more and more people realize how ridiculous it is. I mean, I could go print an ERC20 in 5 minutes if I wanted to. I'm not. But, so many people buy into this and just throw their money at it. The market will become more efficient, I think, over time. And people will realize, okay, this is ridiculous that people continue to pump these things up, especially when they have no use case. So with that said, because the cycles of Bitcoin are lengthening, you can't assume that ADA would necessarily go on its own, say, Bitcoin track and go up, say, to a 10,000x in another, year or so. This is just it's not going to happen. Bitcoin is the market mover. It is the index of the market, whether you like it or not. It's just the fact of the matter. So I think it's better to just accept that and realize that the reason that it is because the entire asset class, for the most part, is completely speculative. And if Bitcoin's not doing well, then speculators aren't going to be as likely to speculate. And that's just, that's the truth of the matter. So one of the things, and by the way, this line here is by no means predictive. I mean, we could come back down and move sideways for a while and then maybe go up. We could stay flat. This is just an idea of one of the most bullish scenario that I could essentially imagine for ADA, would be hugging this curve to some degree. Now, if we want to talk about all things under the sun, one of the things I like to show for different coins is the 1-year ROI, and this chart for ADA doesn't look so great. But the good thing is it is improving. If you look at the 1-year ROI, I mean, obviously early on it doesn't look so bad, because you could have gotten in at like a couple cents and even or even say, I mean, this would be if you're buying in, say, November of 2018 or 2017 and then selling a year later, so in November of 2018, you still would have seen a little bit of an ROI there, just because it hadn't crashed down to that 2 cents point again. But we have been working our way up. Now, this is a logarithmic chart, so we're going from 10 cent to $1 to 10, or sorry, not even. We're not talking about US dollars. It's getting late here. I apologize. An ROI of 0.1, 1, and 10. So a 1-year ROI. And you can see that for the most part, ADA has spent a lot of its time below 1, meaning that if you put your money in ADA and then cashed it out a year later, your return on investment would actually be lower than what you had put in a year ago. And I mean, if you think about it logically, this makes sense, because a lot of people, Cardano ADA hasn't really been around that long. If you purchased it in 2018, of course you're not seeing a good ROI. And during 2018, ADA was basically just decreasing the whole year from those highs that it had. So it's hard to have a good ROI when you're comparing it, back then. But if you look to recent days, if you start in say January of 2020 and just look right from there, it hasn't been as bad. I mean, we've spent some time below it, some time above it, below it, above it, and this would be, I would say, this is our accumulation phase. While it's certainly exciting to see ADA go from 2 cents to 10 cents, at the end of the day, I still think that the cryptocurrency market as a whole is still in this accumulation phase that's going to last us another 16 months or so. And ADA, while it could be bullish, it could certainly go up in the short term. The asset class as a whole will be in that accumulation phase. Now, I want to pull up TradingView just to give you guys, another perspective. So this here is the chart of ADA versus the US dollar. And I drew these lines a while back. You can see that, we've kind of been range bound between this area for quite a while, actually. We've been here for 644 days, noting that around 2 cents is the bottom here, and that 10 cents has been the top here, another one here, and then this entire region over here, and then again we just reached it. This also corresponds with a 0.4 risk level, as I said. Well, you guys know that I dynamically DCA my way into the market, and I also dynamically DCA my way out of the market. It's not a bad thing to necessarily take profits. I mean, I'm not saying that you should. If you're a long-term believer in ADA and you're here for the long haul, and you want to ride it out for the next 3 years, you're not really concerned about what happens in the short term. You're looking more for, say, like you're basically thinking, okay, I'm not even going to get out of bed for a 10-cent ADA. You talking about $1 ADA? Maybe I would. If this is you, then obviously it's kind of irrelevant if it comes back down in the short term, because you're just accumulating. You're looking. You're more of the macro level investor, obviously, like a lot of people who watch the channel. So you're looking out. You're looking out way over here. Even further out, you're looking out until 2022, 2023 or something, and saying, this is my time horizon. And I don't care if we come back down and stay range bound for a bit longer. You also recognize that we don't know, while this is a key resistance point, in the same manner that we could come down, we could break through it. And one of the ways that we would break through this, I think, one of the likely ways to continue just moving on up to, say, 15 cents or so, Bitcoin has to pick up steam. I think this is something that really does need to occur. I've been saying for a long time that as long as Bitcoin is above the 20-week, I expect ADA to do well. And that has been the case. Since we've crossed the 20-week, ADA is up significantly. But we are getting to that region where we are testing, previous areas of resistance. And it could be that it does hold as resistance again. I personally don't put too much credence into imaginary lines, as you guys know. While there is a decent chance we come back down, it also wouldn't be that surprising if Bitcoin went to $9,400 like tomorrow, and then ADA just busted through this and just kept on going up. And then you kind of look back at it and say, well, yeah, you could say hindsight's 2020, or hindsight's 2020. You could say, okay, well, it makes sense because we tested it once, we tested it twice. It makes sense that the third time we tested, okay, we're going to break through it this time. In fact, Bitcoin has done a very similar thing in the past. It tests different levels, and then eventually it breaks through. And even if you scroll back in time and look at Bitcoin's price history, there have been key levels. And actually, I don't even need to scroll all the way back. There's somewhat of a metaphor if you just take into account what Bitcoin has currently been doing. It's tested $10,000 several times in the last couple months, and at some point, if we were to continue testing it, I think we'll break through it. If you do scroll back and say look at the last market cycle, we know that around this point over here, around $1,000, $1,100, was our previous all-time high from the last cycle. And it took us a few tries to break through it, okay? So it's not, the more you test something, you can continue to test it, and eventually you could break through, and then you look back and say, oh yeah, we tested it so many times, it makes sense that we broke through it. On the other hand, you could just as easily say, well, this is an area of resistance, so then if we go down, you say, oh, well, yeah, it makes sense that we went down because this was our prior level of resistance. On the other hand, if you just consider prices to act like geometric Brownian motion and assume it's more of a random walk and that no one can actually predict it, because one of the things that could just propel ADA right through the 10-cent mark would be Bitcoin, going back to $9,500 or $10,000. Then it's clear that ADA would likely continue to move up. So if you prescribe it to that and you're a long-term holder, then this is fine. I mean, you could continue accumulating and just building your position. If your goal, if you watch my channel because you want to see, you like the way I analyze things and you want to capitalize on something, if I see an opportunity, remember this is not financial advice, then remember there's nothing wrong with taking profits, and that doesn't mean you have to take it at this point. Maybe you take it now, maybe you take it at 20 cents, maybe you take it at 50 cents. There's nothing wrong with taking profits and putting those profits in another asset class. I know that's almost blasphemous to say in the crypto space that other asset classes do exist. But you could also put it in another cryptocurrency potentially. I'm not saying you should, but again, remember, when things move up this quickly, it's often not sustained over. At some point we will see a correction. You have to recognize that it's not just going to go straight up and straight up and straight up. And so far, I've been very optimistic for ADA, and I still am, just because of everything that I had going on. But you have to recognize that things do not go straight up in the crypto space and sustain it. And so you have to be on the lookout for the fact that, okay, well, if ADA does come back down to say, 6 cents, would you be okay not having taken profits at 10 cents? Okay. If the answer is you would be okay not taking profits, then this is your answer. Just you're in it for the long haul. If your answer, on the other hand, is, well, I would regret it, then it's something you could consider. And I'm not trying to scare anyone or anything like that. I really do believe in ADA, and it's definitely it's in the top 4, I would say, for sure, of my crypto holdings. I mean, I do hold ADA. It's one of the 4 main cryptocurrencies I talk about on the channel, and we'll continue to talk about for the next several years. But again, it's until you actually take the profits on a coin, it's all. I mean, let's just say like a realized profit is a lot different than an unrealized profit. And I know that seems intuitive, but you wouldn't believe that a lot of people don't actually think that way. So again, this corresponds to the 0.4 risk level. I told everyone back when it was 2 and 3 cents that I would continue to buy ADA up to 10 cents. And I said this because I believe in ADA and I believed in it, and I still believe in it. The reason I won't continue to purchase it above 10 cents is not because I don't think it has the ability to go above 10 cents. I do. I think it has the ability to go to 20 cents, 30 cents, and beyond. It's just that my risk appetite has been saturated. When something is up, and especially in this case when it went up so quickly, when something is up, 300% in 100 days, my risk appetite at that point is completely saturated in terms of, say, putting more money into the market, into that specific market, and I think it would be obvious why. Now, if you're an ADA bull, I mean, you're probably just, oh, this guy, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Again, I am a very strong supporter of ADA, and I do think it has great potential. Just recognize that things do not just monotonically go up forever, and if you're okay with that and you're okay with the corrections in between, then this entire monologue I've been going off on is largely irrelevant to you. Now, let's look at this chart, because I think this is even a more interesting chart than the US dollar chart, and this one just makes me thrilled for ADA. So I drew these lines a while back. I haven't removed them. I wanted to keep them there to kind of see what happened back when I made the last video a few weeks ago. I mean, we've been talking about ADA for a long time, but when I made the last ADA video a few weeks ago, it was at this point here, and just saying, okay, well, this could be an area That takes a little bit of time to break. It took us, a few weeks, took us about a month, and then we just accelerated through. And what's interesting is we basically accelerated through. If you take this candle and you just draw a straight line across, you could say that it roughly corresponds to like this region in here, this kind of like support bouncing region, before dropping into this one and then ultimately dropping into our accumulation range. And we covered ADA a lot back in this accumulation range and said, you know what, guys, this is one of the most beautiful accumulation regions I've seen for any coin, because during this time, a lot of coins bled with respect to Bitcoin. I mean, there's some coins that went up, sure. And this one, ADA, just basically went sideways, and it tested the waters. It said, okay, well, we're going to hold off. Tested it again. Just kidding. One more time. We'll take one more dip, and now we're going to blast off. And now we're coming back up to this level. And I thought maybe we'd spend a bit more time in this region, and maybe we do come back down. But you can see that in one weekly candle, we just shot from this range here all the way up. And it certainly does have me really bullish on ADA, and I'm really happy to see the project grow. I'm really happy to see the incentivized testnet going so well. I'm really happy to see Shelly rolling out really soon, and I'm just excited to see where the project takes us. And it would not be a coin that I would not want to hold for this market cycle, because while there is a risk to holding any cryptocurrency, there's a risk to holding Bitcoin, there's a risk to holding Ethereum, and there's a risk to holding ADA. There's also a risk to not holding these coins. If you're not invested in cryptocurrency at all, because you say it's too risky, my counterpoint would say, well, there's also a risk of not being invested, because if things do go up and Bitcoin goes up to 100K, there's a huge level of risk of not having some exposure to that, when so many other people would. So for me, ADA is my biggest hedge against Ethereum. And I mean, this is known by you guys at this point. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. That'll wrap it up for this video. We'll continue to follow ADA over the coming years, over the coming weeks, months, whatever. So give the video a thumbs up if you like it. Please subscribe to the channel, check out the Telegram channel, and we also do have a premium list if you're interested in the premium content of one video per week, premium video, one weekly newsletter, and also access to the Google Sheets dashboard that has the live risk levels of ADA as well as Bitcoin and Ethereum. So that'll wrap it up for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.